So the message for all ages is always one of my favorite parts of this service. And today we're going to talk about the Ark of the Covenant. So first we have to say covenant, which is what we just did. And we know that that's a promise. It's an agreement. It's a treaty between two people who have a mutual agreement about how to move forward. The holy book of the Christian religion is the Bible. The Bible has two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament, and in fact, the Latin word for covenant is testament. So the Bible is really a book of covenants. And what we're most concerned about here is the stories in the Old Testament. The name of the Jewish holy book is the Tanakh. And Tanakh is an acronym for the first Hebrew letter of each of the text's three traditional subdivisions. The Torah, which are the teachings, or the Pentateuch, or the 5 books of Moses, or the laws. And the Nevi'im, which are the books of the prophets, and the Ketuvim, which are writings, and hence you get Tanakh. Now, the Muslim holy book is the Quran. And indeed, Muslims, Jews, and Christians, the 3 major world religions, all share this same first part of the holy writings. And this story is common to all of these religions. So, what do you know about the Ark of the Covenant? Does it make you think of Indiana Jones? Because that's what it always makes me think of. And you know that the Ark of the Covenant is not the same as Noah's Ark. They're 2 entirely different things. But did you ever wonder what was inside the Ark? Remember we said that the Bible is a book of covenants. So, the first covenant that the Bible talks about is a covenant God made with Noah. God put a rainbow in the sky after the flood as a symbol of his promise to Noah that he would never again destroy the world by water. Covenant number 1. The second covenant was one that God made with Abraham to bless his children and make them a great nation with his descendants as numerous as stars. And in return, they were to always be faithful, and they had a ceremony to mark them as children of God. The third covenant is the one that's in our story today, the story of Moses. So you remember Moses led his people out of slavery in Egypt, and along the way, the people encountered many dangers and problems. I'm telling you, this first 5 books, they are full of adventures and stories and miracles, and they're so much fun to read when you read them in just that way, to find those stories. God spoke to Moses, and he performed a lot of miracles to keep Moses' people safe. So, for example, what happened when they ran out of food on their long journey? Manna was provided every day, and a double portion on the 6th day, so nobody had to work on Sundays. And that was what fed the people. So I kept trying to find out what manna tasted like, or what manna was, and nobody knows for sure. It might be the little seeds of a bush that grows in the desert. It might have been sprouts of grain along the way. It might have been fungi, maybe like mushrooms or something. However, everyone agrees on what manna tastes like. It tastes like a cracker with honey on it. Now, I don't know how they knew this since they don't really know what it is, but you find that every place. Yeah, it tastes like a cracker with honey on it. Now, another time, the people were arguing about who should help lead them. Moses told God that he really needed some help. And God said, "Have your brother Aaron help you." Well, Aaron was a really good helper. But some of the people wanted to have their own brothers, or they wanted to be the leader when Moses was gone. So God told Moses to have each of the men who thought they should be leaders cut a staff and stand before him, and he would prove who was the best candidate. God made Aaron's staff bloom with almond blossoms, and the people saw that he was the favored one. Next. Oh, there it is. Now you'll remember that God and Moses spoke together often. And God gave 10 rules to Moses to tell his people how to live a good life. Those are called the 10 Commandments, and we're all familiar with those. This is the third covenant. Those 2 stone tablets on which the commandments were written, are the symbol of the third covenant, that if the people lived those rules, God would be their protector. And because these tablets were so important, God told Moses to make a chest, an ark, for their safekeeping. This ark was to stay with the people always as a physical manifestation of God. And he gave Moses very specific directions. You will see. The size was to be 2.5 cubits by 1.25 cubits by 1.25 cubits. Now, does anyone know what a cubit is? That's it. Joe's got it, from your elbow to the tip of your finger. It's also made up of 6 palms measurements. So these were the size. So that'd be like 2.25. The material was to be of acacia wood and covered with gold. And the way that they could carry it were 4 rings, 2 on each side, and 2 long staves, also of acacia wood. The lid was called the mercy seat, and it was also made of gold, a crown of gold with 2 cherubim. Now, do you know what cherubim are? They are not baby angels. They are the judgment angels and the guardian of God's holiness, with 4 faces, a lion, an ox, an eagle, and man. And so what do you think went into the ark? A pot of manna to remind the people how God provided for them, Aaron's rod to remind them not to reject God's authority, and the 10 Commandments, so that the people would always know God's laws. So, God commanded the people to keep this ark, the most holy of places, in the heart of the tabernacle, which was the large tent that they traveled. That was their central holy place. And so many things happened over this next 39 years that they wandered in the wilderness. The ark was stolen by the Philistines in a battle, but the Philistines brought it back because they thought it brought them bad luck. And then it led the people through a second water crossing. So God didn't just part the Red Seas at the beginning. He parted the waters of the River Jordan so that the people could travel safely into Canaan. It marched around the walls of Jericho to lead Joshua to victory, and it rested in a city called Shiloh, which was the first permanent building that it was in, and it stayed there for about 350 years. King David brought it to Jerusalem, and his son, King Solomon, built a great temple to the Ark of the Covenant. It was a home where it was supposed to remain forever. But about 2,500 years ago, the Babylonians sacked the city of Jerusalem and the ark disappeared. Some people say that the priests carried it away and buried it at a place in the mountains. Some people say that it is hidden in a small Christian church in Ethiopia. Some people believe that it was accidentally destroyed or maybe melted down to make other church ornaments. Treasure hunters still search for it, and archaeologists and biblical scholars still hope that it will be found in some ancient ruin. But the location of this box that contains a jar of bread, a stick, and 2 stones still remains a mystery.